found out my window was
Did you
rolled
go
down.
over there?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start. Scott. You and I will start, okay?
Sweet.
Tom's on that too.
Carl coming?
over there.
Oh, no, no, sorry.
He'll be, he should come over after, whenever they're through. But it's him and Roy and somebody else, so they're just talking.
Oh.
So we'll
Oh,
probably
yeah,
be through
they're
before
talking.
they get over here.
Oh, yeah,
Is
yeah.
yours?
No,
Those mine. I couldn't find them. I'm blind as a bat. Thank you. I thought I left them in my office.
Okay, so, we're through, we don't take a vote or anything. I'm just directing all my conversations, Scott. Two-way conversations. Oh, roll call. I think you can see who's here.
Oh, okay. Scott
Here.
For the record, right now, there's no one here but Scott.
All right. No. Scott, are you okay with the minutes from the February 6th meeting?
I don't know, let me read them.
Oh, no. It's 3 pages long.
Yes, I'm okay with,
Oh,
if I'm not, I'll say something.
there you go. Budget and finance, have you looked over the finance sheet?
Alrighty. So far, everything's looking okay. The property tax, as of yesterday, this is current year only property tax. That's what we have collected from November to, well, some people came in as soon as they got there. I think we might have collected about 2,000 in October, around the end of October. But to yesterday, we have collected $497,415, which we collected a good bit today also. I looked, just projecting, I looked for that to be over $500,000 next month whenever we get the February one. The only other, I know we've all been concerned about the local option sales tax. Right now, we haven't gotten our tax from, from the Linda Pendergrass is at the trustee's office. They've been slammed this month with taxes, so, but she could give me the figure today of what, and this is December, but due to the fact, that it's got Christmas on it, so that brought it, so far what we've collected, $484,277.
Okay, so that's for December and January?
No, just for December.
Just for December, okay.
Well, I mean, what she told me today, now this $484,277 is from July to December.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't see anything that's earth-shattering or that's standing out. Down to expenditures. Oh, yeah. I wanted to say that, in miscellaneous, for revenues, we got a big chunk of money due to the fact that our bill center is now paid off. Mr. Bill paid it off, so that's the reason we got more, and, he paid it off like 2 years, was it a year or 2 years early? Something like that.
Can you expound on that? I was not aware.
Well, when we built the bill center, we got, the city got the loan on it, but, Richard Bill, gave us the money each month to make a payment.
He pretty much underwrote it.
Yeah.
He was the underwriter on it, and it helped him with his taxes, Scott. Each year, like we knew he was going to pay it, he underwrote it. It was already on, down, it
he gave the town the land, as sort of step one,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then the town, put out for bid and got a loan for the building, but there was also an agreement that he would pay all the loan payments. So the town ended up not paying anything for that building.
And he paid it off early. In fact, he came in and wrote a check like $229,000.
All of which is, good tax maneuver for him.
Yeah. And he wanted it done December 30th,
When?
This past December.
Oh,
Sunday,
30th.
30th, yeah.
So why is it in this month?
because it's not in, it's in this month because, it was done in December. See, this is through January, and I just was bringing that out so you'd see it.
Well, if he did it December 30th, it probably, probably
get
when we got to
posted.
the day, didn't get posted till January. But he paid it off at December 30th, so he could get the write-off on it.
So the town of White Bluff has not paid anything for the land, the building?
Nothing.
We have to show it on a financial statement, but due to the fact that there's money coming in from him and then money going out.
It was a wash.
Well, I understand the tax ramifications of it,
Yeah.
so.
But when he gave that big lump sum, then of course that made our revenues go up, but,
But not really.
not really. No, not really.
Okay, well, happy it's paid for.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a blessing.
But it really wasn't a liability on our side because it was all already
And I know
understood
that
we were gonna pay for
parentheses
it.
makes it look like, oh my, we have spent that's the difference in governmental accounting, is that, say we budgeted 62,000 for, grants, but we've actually gotten in 76, 17, 76, but those parentheses is a good thing. I know that doesn't make sense.
It hurts my head so bad.
It does mine too sometimes.
We love the state program, we have to use.
That's right.
But does that mean that we have to use it?
Yeah.
When it's explained to us, we can't have an accounting spreadsheet like that the rest of the world uses?
Well, we operate under the 1983 Municipal Budget Act, so if you want to complain about it, it's got to go to the legislature.
Call your legislature.
Why can't you have a spreadsheet for you guys?
You wouldn't have a spreadsheet, Mike, and I shouldn't be talking about this. You would not have one that would ever balance out with this. So I don't know what kind of spreadsheet you're wanting. And I've been in business too, and I had QuickBooks, so I know what your spreadsheets look like. I know what you're talking about. It will never balance out with this. If that's what you're trying to do, to keep up with the city revenues and expenditures on the spreadsheet, we got it right here.
Keep up with it.
Well, evidently you are.
No, how do you keep up with it?
Mayor?
I know. Well, yes, but I'm sorry. Yes, we have. With an auditor in the state comptroller's office. Okay. Any questions? Is there anything else? Anything else?
If I was smart enough, I'm sure I would have questions, but I'm not smart enough to
Well,
ask questions.
God, you have to go to school and have training to understand this. And,
That's why I hire bookkeepers.
yeah, that's
And
right.
they give me the condensed version. You're making money, you're not making money.
And hey, I agree, it's complicated. It's very complicated.
They make what you call journal entries on this. And that throws me off too. I mean, because I'll say, well, is this what, yeah, but we've got journal entries that will come in. It's just not like a business where you take in so much a day, you pay out so much a month, and you take in,
Well, businesses have journal entries.
well,
Not everything
Yeah, well,
jives
here-
like it should.
Well, by that, journal entries is stuff like, some, like the franchise fees. They automatically deposit that in our account, Comcast then we had to go in and make a journal entry for that. And so that's what she's talking about.
It doesn't come through our office,
Right,
like we just
exactly.
read or something.
Yeah. We got to
And
show
that's
that.
where our auditor helps us too. I mean, he goes in July and makes journal entries for things that, even though we paid in July, it's actually a June expense. And in order to make, it goes back to the June expense. And I could not do it. I didn't go to utility here. I could not do it. I could not, but I do understand what they're doing. Okay. What I noticed and picked up on this was, property taxes, I looked at, local option and sales tax, I looked at, business taxes. I don't know why that budget is so high, 42,000. We've only, we've only collected, we're only 16% of what we budgeted
We go by what we collected,
the year before.
yeah, just historical figures.
Did this go by the historical figures?
Yes, yeah. We get our biggest bulk, it's the last quarter,
Okay.
so we're going to
Okay.
get more. That's when I think it's the contractors
Okay.
pay them. That's when they pay their fixing,
The last quarter of what?
this fiscal year.
Fiscal year, not the,
Not
Not
last
fiscal.
quarter of the year, but
Okay.
fiscal year.
okay.
So this cable TV franchise tax, when Dixon Electric Systems puts in their Ignite fiber optic, are we gonna get a cut of that, you know?
Didn't we pass an ordinance on that? I can't remember.
Well, state law has usurped a lot of our authority to do those anyway.
Mhm.
Basically, entities who provide these types of services pay a state rate to the locality that they're in typically. The negotiations between individual localities and these companies aren't as prevalent as they used to be, simply because they lobbied the legislature and said, we're tired of dealing with 500, localities.
Sure,
Just,
sure.
we're gonna do a standard rate, so.
I've got a feeling it's gonna probably affect it, don't you?
It might, I don't know the details
I
of
don't
that.
either.
It is based upon revenue, so I mean, if that's what you're getting at, if their revenue goes down, does our franchise fee go down? Yes.
Yeah.
Because we get a percentage.
The question I have is it's gonna be a product of Dixon Electric Systems, which in itself is a utility. And I think it's gonna hurt Comcast really bad. I hope it does, but.
Find me a friend of Comcast.
Huh?
Find me a friend of Comcast.
Yeah, it does exist.
Oh, sorry, Xfinity, sir.
Yeah, so, I mean, them and AT&T and whoever else, comes in, I mean, and plus, Verizon and T-Mobile have set up, wireless internet.
Their home hotspot things.
Right, is that also under the Cable TV Franchise Act, or is that something else? Have we gotten in on that?
Well, if it's under so internet providers themselves, I don't think fall into this cable TV.
Okay,
So I mean, we're talking coaxial cable into a box.
okay, so
I mean, that is
Comcast is it?
that is something that is going down over time.
Well, yeah,
People
so,
are streaming, but a lot of people don't get rid of their subscription, Comcast service.
yeah, well, I hate to say this, and no disrespect, and it's mostly old people who have, my mom has cable, and she couldn't live without it, but as the generations move on, they're used to something different.
But if something's provided is that much cheaper for the public, the fact that the town gets a little less money, the public saves some money. I mean,
What's my?
It's like a grocery tax.
Yeah.
No, the
The town didn't get it,
citizens,
but
including
citizens-
myself, save money on groceries, but the town is losing money. So,
I watched something the other day about a town, it was a fairly big town, and they instituted they called it a Coke tax, but it was a soft drink tax. And it was supposed to pay for school for kids and stuff like that. And I can't believe that the town council would pass such a tax. It's crazy. And it didn't have the change that they thought it would.
Make Coke more expensive.
That's just, upon a time, there was a tea tax. That's just
Yes, there was.
overreach, big time.
We don't, we're close enough to
I have to say, it's not showing up in this report, but in February, this report, we got our first occupancy tax of
$22.
$22 and something.
You talking about the short-term rental?
Yeah, short-term rental.
Was that from the state?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that means that's somebody that got swept up, so they used Airbnb or VRBO.
Yes.
Okay, good, it's working. That's
Well,
good
you know,
that
but it
that
has.
faucet's on.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank everybody for thinking that far ahead,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Amanda's gonna have to leave early tonight. If there's any questions on the HUD process, just wanna make sure we get to that before she has to leave.
Okay, well, the financial statement, if you have any questions, you can call Melody in the meantime.
I'm gonna have to go to school
Right.
to know enough to ask questions.
And one more thing on, every month I always put investment, local government investment pool statement on there, and this was the January statement. Stephanie asked me to do that.
We made $8,300 last month.
We're making money.
Okay, what do you need to, just the codes and permits?
It's the
Is
next
that what
slide.
you want to talk about?
It's the next one,
Amanda?
Mayor. It's
Yes,
the
yes,
HUD
Okay,
overhaul.
okay. Discuss an ordinance to repeal and replace the planned unit development districts in its entirety and to repeal and replace the ordinances in conflict with. We'll have a public hearing on this, before the regular meeting Tuesday night, but go ahead, you got the floor.
If I may, just for 1 second,
Okay.
you see a few red lines in there, those are some legal edits from me, but the rest of it is as you saw when you passed it on first reading last month.
I think they've been incorporated.
Yeah, they were, I just gave them a clean copy.
Oh, they don't have the red lines?
No, I don't
Few-
have
few legal changes.
Yeah.
Don't have red ones.
Good.
And I have nothing else to add, except for, from what I understand, was presented last month, I have nothing else to add. I'm here to answer any questions you all may have.
You think this is a better process for the town?
I believe it's a much better process for the town.
I concur.
So what was this based on? Dixon County?
No, this was actually based off, a process that I wrote for the city of Shelbyville in Bedford County, that I wrote about 10 years ago.
What city?
That's still Shelbyville, I'm sorry.
Shelbyville.
Horse
If you're
town.
from there,
It's
or spent
Shelbyville.
time there, it's one syllable.
Shelbyville.
That's what my wife said when I moved here, and I'm like, no.
But as we talked about last month, I mean, what we were lacking is some of the procedural safeguards and clear direction so that we don't have to get together and figure out what the next step is, which is in writing. And it's, fair to developers to know, here's step A, here's step B, here's step C. And I'll point out again, I'm seeing this in a lot more jurisdictions. I think we'll talk about it here in a little bit. But the neighborhood meetings, how there's so much more input on the front end before a product comes before the planning commission. Now, they'll be the first body to see it, and then it comes up to the council. Down in Thompson Station, we're doing a rewrite of their ordinance, and they've added neighborhood meetings to it all, because the idea was, it was espoused at a meeting the other night, if a developer gets too far down the line, they're less willing to backtrack than if they got an idea that's more palatable to the bodies early on, right? So early input is good, and I like that this document does that. Agree.
Now, the neighborhood meeting, though, is strictly the responsibility of the developer. Is that correct?
Anyone else can come,
It
but
can come,
the
yes,
developer
that-
has to.
yeah.
Were there any changes from your original draft made specifically for our town, or is it pretty much the same?
It's pretty similar. Obviously, there were some things that had to be, that were specific to White Bluff, like your Article 6, I think is 10-unit developments in your zoning ordinance. And then there are also some HUD regulations that are in Article 5 and kind of sprinkled through. So, I mean, in that regard, there are some provisions, technical provisions that are specific to White Bluff. There were also some provisions just in terms of procedures, and in terms of the order in which things come and are presented, and the whole pattern, the idea of having the regulating pattern book. We had a PUD come through recently that came in under our old regulations, and that kind of served for me as a gut check of, okay, if this had come in under these regulations, what would we be looking at this point in time? So while not every regulation is universal in nature, this one does seem to stand a pretty broad test, and that's what it's intended to do.
I'll dovetail on that, in that, especially the pattern book, we talked about, normally something is rezoned, or already as its current zoning, a plat will come in. Then there's construction plans, then a final plat. Maybe you see there's a site plan if it's commercial. With a pattern book, you're approving, and I'll use 78 Church as an example, you're approving if you approve it, a rezoning with all the development documents with it. They can't change their mind about it 5 years later unless they ask permission. They're tied together. That's really, to me, legally the uniqueness of a PUD is you're tying the zoning and the documents, where someone could rezone a piece of property if it's approved and not do anything for decades, for centuries, presumably. So, you're tying what's going to be built there until it gets changed. There's no lapsing or anything that happens with that. It stays with that zoning. If you're R3 PUD or R2 PUD or whatever it is, the development plans with it. And it's not going to be every single little detail, but, y'all got down into the weeds, and I think that was a good thing on the type of fence, the height of the fence. Which way is the garage going to face? That's what's coming before you with this. And that's the type of back and forth that doesn't happen outside of the PUD process, where it's just the standard plat, final plat. So, just wanted to point that out.
I think on the planning side, in terms of collecting the documents and the information, one of the, I think, more beneficial things about what is being proposed is that you get that information up front instead of an applicant saying, well, we'll get that to you later, we'll get that to you later, we'll get that to you later, and then later never comes because either they never make it to that part of the process, or something changes, or the project changes hands or whatnot. And that also, because that requires more effort up front, more skin in the game, if you will, it requires them to take a more vested interest up front and show their commitment to the project and be willing to put that time up and not put off those little details that really at the end, that's your face of your project. So personally, that's what I really like about it too.
It's not inexpensive to put something like this together. It's a lot of engineering, a lot of design work. So yeah, they would definitely have to be invested.
So speaking of the Church Street and Highway 70, Jill Reisinger is selling her house. She's the one that it adjoins to on Church Street. The one that we got a special fence, privacy fence allowed on it. So now she's selling it and moving. I assume that it's still using the same fence.
Her moving doesn't matter. This, again, with the zoning, it goes with a piece of land. It could have 10 different owners over 10 years. It stays with land.
I'm saddened to see her sell it. I don't know why, but it's evidently it was a family home, so I guess she just didn't want to be there anymore.
I mean, the people that it was a family home before she bought it too. So, it's real estate.
So, Mayor, this will, second reading will be a public hearing.
Yes.
So,
Discuss amending a resolution of the county of Whiteville, Tennessee to add notice requirements to zoning and rezoning requests regarding signage.
And if I may, Councilman Glover, I know one thing you wanted to look into, and I happened to bring the draft with me. The Dixon County Planning Commission is going to consider updating the notice of zone change application. You got it. So I didn't know if you were going to incorporate are these two separate things, or, because this doesn't address signage. This addresses, thank you, ma'am. This requires the applicant, and we would need to broaden this to annexations too. Counties don't have annexations, so we need to rework it for the town if you want to explore it. But requires the applicant to mail a specific notice, which you get to pick the details in it, to every, and the way they have it here is adjoining parcel. In that, you exclude roads and railroads and rivers, the next parcel over around you for the whole parcel.
Right.
So that's what the county's taken up in March, and I just wanted to point that out. You have it, so.
Well, I was really hoping to see what the county did and what they passed, and then try to adopt theirs and mold it to fit our situation.
That can absolutely work.
That's why I've been not pushing this.
So because it's a zoning change, and the way the county does it, the civics law, counties don't do ordinances, they do resolutions. That's their law.
Mm-hmm.
It only requires one reading. Isn't that funny? But the way Dixon County's always done it, they have the public hearing on a meeting date, and then they take up the resolution at the next meeting. So it's almost like they have two readings. So this won't be law for the county until May at lightning speed. So do you want this to come back in a form, and again, it'd be up to everybody, but do you want this to come back in a form if PC approves it, or you want to wait till it's fully adopted? Because again, we're talking 90 days. And it would have to start the planning commission.
PC, you mean our PC?
Dixon County.
So I'm just anxious or interested to see what kind of modifications is made before they actually pass it.
I have a question though. Did we not, in this, what Amanda just talked about, I know that we said the community meetings was a responsibility. Did we not also in that say that the developer also had to send a letter to, where did I hear that? To the, any parcel around it, to the owners?
Yeah, let me turn, but keep in mind, if it's in this, it's only for PUDs. Not for anything else, not annexations, and I think, if I may speak, not for Councilman Glover, but what I've gotten is, this would be a blanket. We would need it to comply with the PUD change, but it would be for anything. Any rezoning, and the way you typically do it is an upzoning. I would say you probably don't, unless you want to, don't do it for a downzoning. Someone went from R2 to R1, is that worthy of that for y'all to decide? But certainly in the upzoning, to a more intensive use. I gotta find, so they do have, they have to send notice for the neighborhood meeting. It does not address, it's just the neighborhood meeting. It's not the actual rezoning process, but obviously, if they send out notice of the neighborhood meeting, people are going to know it's coming up. But there's nothing that prevents you from not just glancing at it, from adding on top when you actually go forward with because it is a rezoning. A PUD is a rezoning with development plans, from going forward and including that.
The PUD process, it actually requires, at a minimum, property owners within a 500-foot radius of the proposed PUD must receive informational letters.
For the neighborhood meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's broader, probably, than the adjoining parcel definition for the county regs.
Yeah.
So, take that into, that is going to happen if y'all don't change it. That's what's going to be approved if y'all approve it on Tuesday night for PUDs.
Right.
And that's only the neighborhood meeting. I think you're still carte blanche, able to do general notices for rezonings, including PUDs, And I would add annexations, just for that purpose, on top of this as an additional layer.
Something else was brought to my attention, that National Metro also put signs out for various things like this one here. It's proposed lease of Metro property, so.
Metro has a very interesting charter, yeah. They put out a lot of signs. BZA hearings on variances, they put
Right.
out signs, because that's always, their BZA compared to ours is they have, 30 agenda items every month. When's the last time our BZA met, Jeff?
Oh.
Years. So, when you have an active BZA that's doing variances a lot, people will get more.
Right.
Especially they have to tell the adjoining parcel owner because it's changing the nature of the property next to you.
So would that be also included in the county resolution?
No, that is not included in the county resolution. They're just doing rezonings right now.
But as far as signage and stuff like that, and mailing letters to people, let them know that it's going through the BZA and there might be a change.
It's not in this draft. Now, again, that doesn't prevent any member from making a motion to amend it. There are certain state law requirements on BZA hearings that happen, but again, a BZA is a very different body than this body or a planning commission. They're quasi-judicial. They're having findings of fact and conclusions of law. But I can look into that, but the current draft is only for rezoning.
Well, I ask all these questions and because, like I said, I'm not aware of everything, so I just want to be as transparent as I can think to be. So if we can incorporate things like that in signage and letters and stuff like that, I think that would show people that we're trying, we want to be.
There's a couple of BZAs around here I work with that do require at least letters to the adjoining parcel owners for a BZA, anything BZA related.
Right.
And they have a public hearing at the beginning of the meeting and get input, and then they actually then close it down and have a formal process of hearing evidence and making a decision. So that's typically done through the bylaws of the BZA. So I mean that could be handled that way. But BZAs are kind of their own animal. So I think it would be difficult for this body to, kind of like our conversation about when the PC can have their meeting, it's even more so because they're their own statutory animal created by the state. So, but that could certainly be, I don't know if we do that now, but we can certainly discuss that and take it to the next BZA meeting whenever that happens.
Well, I will say this, when we had our training, I think it was back a couple of months ago, November, and the BZA, I had to ask, and most of them did, the BZA members came, and they got a legal training from Sam, I won't say Sam Elliott.
Sam Edwards.
Yes, Sam.
I want to be that Sam.
You want to be Sam Elliott, don't you?
Yeah, but I only spoke for 35 minutes. I think he spoke for 3 hours.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of stories.
But he spoke directly to BZA members, and it's quite, and he's right, it's completely different.
Well, and that's where your largest controversy will either begin or really come to a culmination. I always like referring back to the fuel depot started with the BZA hearing. That's what kind of kicked off that whole multi-year controversy, if you will. So, the BZA is an independent body that has a lot of power to determine interpretation, one, changes or exceptions to your zoning ordinance, two, and then special exceptions, whether or not something can go in and what conditions do you put on it if it's a particular type of use. We don't have that often, but we have all of those in our zoning ordinance to deal with. Just people haven't pushed the envelope as much here, so.
Okay.
So this will be on the agenda for Tuesday night, and Scott, I mean, if you want to table it to a future date, then you all just.
Yeah, be a motion to table, and you can put the caveat, a motion to table until X. Tell me what the X is, and we'll know what the county does, and we can adapt it and bring it back and have y'all look at it at a work session.
Are you ready to adapt it, or you ready, you want to put it off still?
I'd like to get some more research done and all that. I just hadn't had any time here lately.
Okay.
Well, whatever motion you want to make, the council can take up on Tuesday.
So, does that mean we leave it on the agenda, or we leave
Until
it
it's
on the
back.
agenda until Tuesday? Okay, okay. Agenda thing. Public safety, we'll talk about street and sidewalk, parks and recreation,
Well, we missed
Sprinklers.
sprinklers last one.
excuse me, sprinklers. I didn't do that on purpose.
It was good. It was
Okay.
good. We had a good time out there at the Vet Center today. So we put out a fire.
Did they ever?
We stood out there for an hour, and it took 2 minutes to put out the fire.
Actually, yeah, the whole video of the fire was 1 minute.
There you go.
It was fun. It was very, very helpful having Pleasant View come in. Some things I thought was interesting that I asked their chief, and you probably have discovered some things, because I was trying to find some ways to incorporate this for sprinkler systems without being overburdensome. I was asking questions on what happens if water's not available because the main lines don't run there, because that's obviously a very real possibility here in White Bluff. And so their numbers was that a residential sprinkler system typically runs right at $1.5 to put in per square, and that if you don't have water accessible, then you can put in a tank system and they're $2,500. And so it's like, if you have a community that you're putting in down in the sticks, that water is, you're not going to be able to improve your infrastructure enough to take on that. It's $2,500 per bill, which that's not that big a deal to put in that tank system. He said that tank system will run 10 minutes. So I thought that was pretty significant. He said if we would like, we can actually bring in a secondary trailer down here so we can do a compare and contrast. Because what they do in that second trailer is they show they have 2 different living room settings, and they let it run for 8 minutes, because 8 minutes is the national response average of a fire department.
So does the water run for 8 minutes?
No, well, they let the fire go.
Okay.
So on one side, they let the fire go for 8 minutes, and then on the other side, they have the sprinkler system with the fire, and they let you do a compare and contrast. They're like, well, so assuming that this fire is going to run at least for 8 minutes because the fire department's not getting there. So I thought that was pretty fascinating, just in some of his information. But I recorded all of it, so I could be happy to his entire spiel and speech on everything. He actually goes over the different sprinkler system heads that can be installed. Some of them are very low profile. I thought I learned something. I didn't know that they had low profile ones like that, where you don't even know that they're there, which was fascinating. So, I mean, I saw nothing that gave me reservation about trying to walk down this road. Roy was there. He got a lot of his questions answered. I thought that was good. He seemed to have a positive spirit about him once we were done. So, I mean, it's something I would like to explore. I think it's worth saving lives.
So is there just $2,500?
If you don't have water accessible from
I understand. The cistern, is it just one size fits all, or depending on the size of the house?
Now, this is not for, right now what we're looking at, it's not for residential, single-family homes, right?
So yes, I mean, you're talking about it would be like, so if you have a duplex, you'd have a system for each side. Now, I'm not necessarily opposed to single-family homes. I was just frankly just trying to open the door to this. So I'm not, if it was the will of the council to say, well, let's go ahead and pull the trigger for everything, I'm not going to necessarily be opposed to it, but I think at the very least, we should start with the idea of the shared wall.
Shared wall, that's what we were talking about.
Yep. Now, of course, this is, so yes, when I say 2,500, I'm talking about for an average size build, an average size house, it could handle a single family. I'm not talking about a commercial system. Commercial system is all another can of worms. But in the case that we're putting up 8 duplexes on the far end of Taylortown, and we don't have a water line that's big enough to go there that we can provide enough pressure, this is another way that we could be able to facilitate still getting a sprinkler system in there. Or he said Pleasant View did it for a while. They did it where if water wasn't available, then you were all immediately didn't have to sprinkle. So you could do it that way. But I personally don't, my opinion is that I don't think $2,500 is that big of a difference in view of building a house.
How much did you say it was per square foot?
$1.05.
So a 1,500 square foot house would be 2,250, 2,250.
Yeah. And then if you have to put in the tank system, you're going to be right there at $5 grand. I mean, that's not. And here's the big caveat. So forgive me. Thank you for. I don't know. Here's the big caveat for the city. I thought that this was the biggest. This is the, you call it a drawback if you will, but it was the biggest thing that we would as a city have to pay attention to. They very much encouraged not making your codes guy do the inspection on the new build. They very, very much encouraged to get one of your fire guys certified, whoever. If you don't have someone on payroll, to get someone on payroll for this, which we already do have someone on payroll, but basically get someone who's in our local fire department certified to do these inspections, and then allow that person to go there and do those inspections. It all does not have to be that yearly. I believe Roy, when he was talking about it, he was really only talking about large commercial. He was not talking about residential when you're talking about yearly inspections. Yearly inspections for residential only has to be done on the build. And he said, and because there's a lot of things that he overcame in his presentation, there's a lot of myths about it. Freeze is a big concern that everybody has. He said the biggest offset to making sure you don't have a system freeze is just get it inspected when they first install it. He said if you inspect it properly, make sure it was put in correctly, you don't have those issues with freezing.
Well, I mean, it's the insulation, that's always the...
Yeah. And for instance, with the garage, he said the reason that they had issues with it freezing in the garage, people would leave the garage door open, and then they would have the sprinkler system in different locations. So what they decided to do was only put the sprinkler system in the shared wall with the interior of the house and then insulate properly. And since it was shared with the warm side of the interior of the house, even if people left the garage door open, it didn't freeze. So that's how you simply overcome the freeze issue, is install it correctly and make sure it's inspected that it was installed correctly. And of course, something I didn't realize that I learned was that the whole Hollywood thing is you spark one sprinkler and all of them goes off. That's not true.
That is correct.
It's just the one year's fire.
Did they mention insurance coverage? Does that help in any way with insurance?
He didn't mention that. He did say overall when they assess your firehouse, it can help you insurance-wise because you will have someone in your firehouse certified for that and on payroll. He said it can help in those regards. I did not ask the question if it helps your individual insurance. He would be willing to come and speak to us. He did offer that though.
It's like when you got a car and you put an alarm system on it, so that's your insurance.
I don't think sprinkler systems decrease your insurance premium, from what I found out. I don't think it raises it much, but it only raises because of water damage. And because it's a non-0% chance, insurance has to factor it in. But it doesn't decrease it, but I don't think it increases it that much. So I don't know numbers. You'd have to get an actuary to tell you that. I know you asked me to reach out to some of my counterparts. I did. I've talked to several people. Most recently, the county attorney for Cheatham County, because they kind of have the countywide, and they have it just like their cities do. It's interesting how that whole county and all the cities do it, and a lot of areas around them don't. Obviously, there's grandfathering. You can't retrofit and make people retrofit, and they had a few other exceptions I thought were interesting. The county does not require it in a single-family detached dwelling that's not in a subdivision. So if you're in a subdivision, single-family detached, they do, I guess because proximity. But if you're on your own 5-acre tract of land, you don't have to do a sprinkler system. A detached accessory structure, typically no. There's some exceptions there. Ag, it's exemptions, so if it's barn or whatever, it's not required to, and that's state law protection. Car washes, I guess because they already have water in them.
You get your car wash burned down.
And then existing lots of record without adequate water supply, including lots or parcels that do not have legally unencumbered direct access to a public water supply and have only well water supply as an option. there's gonna be all those examples that keep going, but if you don't have the pressure to do it, the county does not make you get the tank. It only makes you do it if there's pressure. So, that's something to consider. Nothing else particularly interesting from that. From my conversations with a few codes people in Middle Tennessee and some planners, honestly, there are mixed reviews. There are some people who think it's a great idea. There are some people who moan when you say it, like, oh, you know. It all depends on where you're coming from and your perspective. On one side, you've got the saving of lives. On the other, you've got whenever it doesn't work properly, the damage it causes, the increase in cost that the builder's probably not going to shoulder. They're going to pass down to the buyer, so you make residences more expensive. But again, I don't think there's a clear answer. It's just what is the will for this jurisdiction, and that's for the council to decide. I don't think there's a huge negative either way. You've been without it, so clearly that's worked. If it was the will of the council to move forward, I would probably baby step this. Number one, there's a lot of different regulations that need to mesh together. I mean, the list of things the county had to do, they had to adjust 20-ish sections of the code. I mean, it would just take some time to compile. I mean, candidly, if you wanted to do this, it'd probably be July before you saw it. And the shared wall would probably be easier to implement than all single-family detached. And one other option, talking to a couple people, was multifamily. True multifamily, most of them did not do duplexes. Townhomes over a certain size got it, I think it was 5 or 6, and then multi-story, multifamily, absolutely. So those are just things to consider. We would need to do a little bit more digging if it's the will of the council to move forward with something, because right now it's commercial and industrial, unless I'm misreading this if you see it differently, Jeff, but this would be the first foray for this jurisdiction into residential. So just things, that's kind of what I found out. There's a lot of components to put together. It's a mixed bag. Shared walls or some other, triggering mechanism is probably worth exploring.
I can't speak for the council, I can only speak for myself, but I personally would like to. I think everything I saw today convinced me that it's a good idea. They were willing to come and speak to us as a council if we requested. So that was nice of them, and again, I just can't see us as a council. I know when I first came on, there's been a constant theme of we don't have enough firehouses, we don't have enough fire hydrants for us to turn our nose up at this option as well. I don't see that as very consistent. So I would like to pursue this as well because I think all of these need to go hand in hand to help each other. So if we need to start with shared walls because that's the easiest implementation and that's the first baby step, cool. That's what I suggest to begin with because I think that is a good baby step. And then maybe years later we can look at single family, fine, that's fair. But I would like to look at this. I mean, if y'all would like more information or people to speak at it, that's my will, but it may not be the will.
Well, the thing about it is too, is we've already got a lot of developments and projects that are already grandfathered in, correct?
Yeah, we couldn't change that.
Couldn't change that,
Yeah.
no. But we can, I mean, I never live a life of regrets. You do the best you can at the moment, but what you can do is change what's coming next.
Real quick, because this is one of the conversations I had with the codes guy in Williamson County. Did they talk about 13D, 13R? Does that ring a bell at all? So those are sprinkler system types. Apparently 13B is that's your single family, or maybe townhome depending on duplex. Much more isolated system, a lot more control apparently. It's tied into the water line behind the main toilet in your house. It's kind of interesting the way that discussion went.
That is the main toilet.
The water line right behind it. Like you can't even turn it off. In order to shut off the water, you have to shut off your main. It was designed so that people can't just
Yeah, they did that for
turn it off.
Yeah, they did that on purpose.
I thought that was interesting. And then the 13Rs, the larger systems, and we got into a discussion about attic easements of record, so that, you know, because it's one system for, say, 10 townhomes.
Yeah.
The HOA or somebody has to have shared access, and the fact that, I mean, it's the first time I've ever heard of, you've activated the Z axis of a graph, you're now doing an easement in the air. That was kind of fascinating, and raised some little eyebrows for myself. But yeah, there's a lot of different systems out there that are basically designed to somewhat be foolproof. One of my concerns was town liability, and my research was the same as what you said. For residential, we inspect it at the beginning, and then it's on the owner thereafter. It has to be. There's no other option. We don't have the bandwidth to do it, and nor does anybody else do it. It's on the owner. It's your system. Presumably, not saying this would be a good thing or sanction it, but you could rip it out years later if you really wanted to. But that's how it had to be built. Now, anyone that would do that, I don't know, but it sounds like a lot of money and effort. The inspections definitely, I know Roy said we would have that obligation, but we don't. We would just inspect what was built. It would be just like you got an electrical inspection. It would probably be tied into the plumbing inspection. If you had someone with the fire department, they would have to come in and look at it, you know.
To me, that was the only, I hate to say obstacle, but that's the only burden on the town is to be, and the way he strongly recommended was just get someone to bring their firehouse certified and pay them to go do it, and that's on the initial inspection.
So I guess in sum, and then I don't really have anything else to add, but I think where it applies, whether or not you want to address the adequate water supply. Again, Cheatham County says if you don't have to do it. But if you have a big enough water line, you're doing it. And I think that's worth considering if you go that route. Just a couple of those either ors we would need to know.
I mean, I wasn't turned off from insisting either tie into the water supply or do the tank. Just because the tank didn't seem to be over, $2,500 is not the end of the day when you're talking about buying a house. You're not even going to notice that on your regular mortgage. You know, you're not going to see that. So I don't think it's too big of a burden to say, hey, either tie into the regular water supply or put it in the tank. That would be my preference.
I think the council needs to give directive on what we create on that because, you know, for example, Cheatham County said, no, we're not doing tanks. Other jurisdictions have said yes. So it just, again, that's one of those.
Is this tank large enough for like all the shared walls and stuff?
So
How much water will it hold?
Only enough to run for it runs the system for 10 minutes. That's it. That's all it can do. And then they
But that would be the system in every unit?
Yes, they have a system in every unit in the crawl space under or whatever, and they said it just gets installed in the crawl space and it'll run the thing for 10 minutes and then you're done.
Smaller things, and this is one of those things we would have to ferret out if we go this direction. Smaller things are going to have independent units in each. Like if you have a 10-unit townhome, like the example from earlier, that will be one system. That will be one system, one tank, all the way through.
But I would imagine if somebody's going to build a 10-plex, they're going to have to improve the infrastructure anyways to be able to accommodate that 10-plex.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other, this is not a 100% thing, of course, but where you're going to have more dense development is going to be where the infrastructure is, so it's more likely that they're going to have the water lines.
Yeah.
You know, the furthest out's going to be detached single family on 10-plus acres, probably doesn't have the water pressure, maybe exclude them, you know, and then subdivision, and then townhome, and then multifamily. As you move up the density, you're probably getting closer to infrastructure, so it could take care of itself.
I think the tank would come up less than we realize, but in the instance if somebody's going down there on the far end of Taylortown, the water doesn't go out that way, and they're trying to put 2 duplexes, okay, throw a tank out there, you know. Because they're not going to be doing that huge build out there anyways.
So I think for y'all to think about going into Tuesday, I think we need directive on not final decisions. What do you want us working on? So just think about what that would be.
Anything anything that you could think of that I missed that I didn't bring up?
So I'm confused on this tank. It's not gravity fed, it's pump fed. So there's a connection to electricity. I would hope that the system would be totally independent of other systems.
Yeah, but of course, as a sprinkler system, your entire house isn't going to be fried by the moment that your your sprinkler system comes on. I mean, I'm assuming it was a pump, so I imagine if you're having a pump go upwards, it can't be a gravity system. You said they're installed in crawl spaces. So I can only imagine that would have to be tied into electrical, but my point is, it's not like their house's electrical system is completely fried, because your sprinkler system's gonna cut on before that happens. So,
Remember, they had the generator there.
Yep.
Providing power.
Yep, yep. So, I think the system's gonna be only so good.
Okay, so this will be on the agenda Tuesday night.
And it'll just remain a discussion topic, and then you all give us direction.
So, you're talking shared walls overrides everything else. So if it's a 10-plex or a 4-plex, if it has a shared wall, it gets.
If that's the will of the council,
Right.
again, we don't have the document, but if y'all are saying,
That's what I would suggest.
go work on shared wall, we can do that. If you wanna say something more than that, work on something that applies to everything, that would be another option. Or do something where, we were talking earlier, not just a shared wall, but you have to have enough units to justify, like it has to be 6 or more townhomes that have a shared wall, or a.
Defeats purpose. I think shared walls is what.
Sure,
It's called least common denominator.
I'm not saying one's right or wrong, I'm just saying, those are the types of, we need to know what are the parameters. If it's shared wall across the board, okay, if y'all vote for us to go do that, then we would do that.
That would be easiest.
It is probably a little simpler.
And I was saying, in addition to not, Roy was really worried about this, I was not suggesting in lieu of the firewall, saying in addition to.
So this will be on the agenda for further discussion Tuesday night. Public safety, streets and sidewalks, parks and recreation, any old business we need to discuss. Any new business that you can think of?
Oh, I forgot to mention, Mayor, the other question from the last meeting, any type of rental of your home on a short-term basis is covered. So if you rent your room,
So if they do the pad split thing?
well, if they do it on Airbnb or VRBO, that's already getting scooped up by the state, so we're good there. But I was talking to Jeff earlier, it's all about enforcement. You could rent your whole farm and house, and we don't know about it, so it's, if you see something, say something, someone's renting it, yeah.
But my idea is, I mean, you would be on the pad split website without somebody scooping it up, right?
Is that a separate website?
Yeah, it's basically, it is just like Airbnb, it's just a different website and you rent.
I imagine it's been addressed by the state, I'll double check on that, but it is covered by our ordinance, so if you find out someone's renting their room, they need to talk to Jeff and or Melody about paying their applicable occupancy tax.
Speaking of new business, I don't know if this falls under or not, I had a constituent talk to me today about the Hornell Road project and how all the trees were cut down and they hauled off the logs and left the tops of the trees everywhere, and it's been like that for quite some time. There's trash all over the place, and nothing's been done. Is there something that can be done? I'm asking for the constituent that asked me.
I don't know anything about that, but if there's possibly a code violation issue or something, I would just direct it to Jeff, so that it can be, eyes can be put on by an employee of the town, and then they'll report back, and if I have to get involved, I'll get involved. Hopefully not, but, yeah, I mean, if someone has grass too tall for too many weeks, we go after them, so.
Right.
I get it. But yeah, if there's an issue, just get it to Jeff, and it'll get processed.
I'll work.
Unless you think it should go somewhere else, Jeff.
And did you give any more thought about the pothole fixing company taking bids?
Did I? No.
Not something we want to look into.
You all tell me what to do.
Okay.
How many potholes have we fixed this winter? A bunch.
Yeah.
Did people call in?
But I have a friend that's starting his own company. He'll be able to use hot patch year-round. Yeah, he bought a special machine, and then he can actually reclaim all that asphalt and reuse. It goes into his machine then liquefies it, makes it into hot patch again. So I didn't know if that's something that might interest us as a town. That way we wouldn't have the equipment stuff that, doesn't get used because the people who do it also do other things. And I don't know, I thought it'd be kind of nice, but I mean, they actually take a saw, cut a hole, hot patch it, and compact it.
Personally, I would just want it, if we were to consider something like that, I would just want it to be a tool and just belt. So that way, if you have the feeling of, dang it, I've been there 6 times on cold patch already, okay, I have the authority to call this company because I'm tired of cold. I would like that to be your tool belt, but I also don't want us going to that all the time. But if you, in your discretion, said, yeah, this is the problem, we need a hot, okay, that's the way I would see it.
I mean, I guess, just for conversation, now, yes, in the wintertime, we're gonna use cold patch, that's all we have access to. But once the asphalt plant's open, we periodically get hot mix, and that's what we use.
But there is one open on the east side, right this time of year, but everything around here, like you said, is not working. But, like I said, he's got a machine, so it doesn't matter. I mean, he can go fill up his machine and get it done. I think it'd be something, it'd be nice to consider or look into doing.
How quickly, what time of the year does the hot patch generally
It's
become
weather
available?
dependent, but usually maybe late March or early April.
And then usually closes around the last of October or November.
It's been a little later because it's
Yeah.
warmer, but Thanksgiving
Yeah.
probably.
Actually, this year, they worked up until the week of Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah. So it sounds like the problem with the hot patch is mostly, you might say, January through March. Otherwise,
And that is typically the worst time for potholes.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
so I understand
yeah.
it's just we don't currently have that in our budget, and we would have to go out and bid that process out some way if that's what the council wants to do.
Well, what part of our budget goes towards what we have now?
It's the streets, street. I mean, that's that section in the budget.
My question from the legal standpoint is, what are we bidding out? We don't know how much money we're gonna spend, and that's a little iffy. So it'd actually be more like a service contract that you have to put out a RFP for. I'm thinking, right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, or you could say up to 20,000, right, that the town can spend on this service. You could put that bid out, I guess. But then it becomes who can offer the most quantity for the 20,000, and
Right.
that's not normally how that's a reversal of the process. You put it out for bid, tell me, here's the project, and you tell me how much it costs, right? An RFP is a proposal to do something that's a little bit more variable. So I lean more towards an RFP for this, if it's the will of the council.
What does RFP stand for?
Sorry, request for proposal. So it'd be like, here would be our terms of our agreement, and maybe you get 3 different ones, and the council could consider which one they thought was best for the town. But again, you're taking a public service that's provided and outsourcing it privately. And you need to, if you were to do that, you'd have to come up with the parameters for that.
And we typically would probably use a service like that January through March, if we chose to, because that's really basically the only time that our guys do the potholes with cold, right? After that, we're okay.
And my argument is, if we could just leave our city employees and doing that all together, and outsource the whole thing.
You can put out there an RFP and see how much it would cost.
It's like anything else, it all comes down to how much does it cost them?
How much does it cost?
And it's the same
How much are we
argument
gonna use?
about the trash, same argument as the
Yeah.
trash, of bringing it in-house or not, is how much is it gonna cost?
Do we have any idea of how many potholes get filled in a year's time on average?
I mean, we could get that number, but no,
Oh, yeah.
not off the top.
To be able to build an RFP, you're gonna have to have information like that.
Yeah.
So,
Probably, but more importantly, they have to get us a price per pothole. And I imagine dimensions and quantity of material are going to play a role in that. And again, it's a little, we'd have to get into it to figure out how it would happen.
It would almost have to be, I can come out to the town for this price, and then depending on what you have, this is what it costs for some quantity of asphalt. I mean, it seems like that would be the two main components, is time and how much the product,
I mean,
how much the product.
that's just down to labor and materials.
It is, it is.
As compared to what it costs us to do it internally, we already have the employees and the access to buy it. So, yeah,
okay. Well, I'm gonna get them to do an example. Does anybody have a problem with that?
No, why don't you tell him to come to town sometime and we'll give him an example, give him something he can.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, tell me.
Yeah.
I've already talked to him about it. He wants to do it. He said he'd do it for free, just so he could show you how the good job that they do.
The town's allowed to accept free work, so.
Well, I mean, I don't wanna say, yeah, go fix this road and then.
but we're not gonna use you.
Right.
Have,
Right.
no, he understands it.
Yeah.
No,
He just, what I would just, I mean, I'm sure he knows this, but I just always advise caution the same thing as we were looking at when we were looking hard at the trash was, it's always hard for commercial independent businesses to compete with governmental entities, because we don't have to make a profit, we're just trying to pay for it, whereas he has to make a profit to stay in business. So it just would be very interesting what those numbers look like.
I don't wanna say, go ahead and fix this hole and have Chief Chris come up and arrest me because I'm digging up the road.
I imagine if you coordinate with Jeff, that can do it.
It would be fine.
Okay. Well, I will work that out.
Take some pictures.
Wait till we have another big rain, big flood or something, because that's when we've gone through the ice and snow, I think, so.
Well, keep it in mind and let him know if there's a particular target pothole you want fixed. And we'll get him to do a demonstration. Because he already told me he would just underbid anybody because he wants to get his business going. He's already got a couple townships on board.
A couple of government. I don't think personally I would want to base my business on government, but
Well, what he's doing is he works for a company that does leak detection. And all they do is go dig up the hole and fix the leak. And so they had to outsource this fixing of the hole, so
Because they have to dig it up.
their job is to dig the hole, fix the leak, and it's done. So
they're a utility.
it's,
That's what I was thinking, that sounds like something that you would do. We have utilities that, in my opinion, kind of sometimes leave our new pavement when they come and lay lines or lay something across, and you go back later and they come back and fix it, but it's really never like it was new pavement.
that it's not as soon as you would hope.
Right.
And so, but what they do it for anybody who has leaks. And so they take it upon themselves to start up a side business to do this.
So
And,
it sounds like he doesn't do just potholes then, he has,
no, well, he fixes holes that
Fixes holes.
were
yeah.
created
Okay.
to fix a leak.
That might be a little more stable for any business.
Right, right.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's just trying to
All right.
be able to afford to service
Take it on the side.
this company, plus he's looking to,
Right, gotcha, gotcha.
I thought it was a pretty neat idea. He takes a concrete saw, cuts a hole, and then it's a nice,
Yeah.
it's all, he takes a camper and makes it flat, like you hope. Anyway,
Well, we'll know before next budget. It comes in. Right.
but I don't know what kind of equipment this town has, and, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
if we
Yeah,
have,
have to compare,
Right.
you know, just.
that's why I'm trying to get ideas,
Yeah,
what I have to compare it to.
yeah. Well, bring it back. We're going to have him come and do an example. And then he can tell you what it costs to do that particular pothole. Then we can look and say, okay, but we have two guys here, and they're already on our payroll, and we have to, so that gives you something to compare it to. It's a good idea, though, I like it. Okay. Under new business, we have a middle school baseball team, basketball team that, goodness, they won awards right and left, and so we're going to present a plaque to them Tuesday night, and so they will be invited here.
An attaboy.
An attaboy, congratulations. They won, I think they went all the way to the state, yeah, and they were playing in the state when they finally got defeated, but they won like 3 different titles to get to that state. That's good for a small town like us. Very good, very good. We're real proud of them. So, we will present a plaque Tuesday night. I didn't have that on the agenda, Jeff, but nothing we have to vote on, so I don't think anybody will be against that. We did get, and I think we probably will bring this up really more, because we'll start this in another month or two, budget. And we did get a bid from, was it Denton? What's the name of it?
Denton's.
For a monitor in the courtroom. So, we got that,
It's 2,
okay.
one on,
Nice.
Not knowing anything technical, thought that we would have enough in the budget right now, actually, to go out and buy 2 nice big TVs, stick them up there, let's go. It doesn't work that way. No. So, honest, that opened my eyes, and I said, we'll talk about that for next budget, probably. So, anyway, I can't think of anything else. Y'all got anything?
Mayor, the only thing that I would add, today we had a safety action plan meeting. Safety action plan, we've talked about it before, that's the plan, that's the prerequisite to future TDOT grants. So transportation related, and it's not as broad as the comprehensive plan, but the process is similar. So this is tentative at the moment, it could change, but there's a public engagement component to that. So when the public would be invited to share opinion, it'll be some online stuff, but we will also have an in-person session out at the Civic Center. Tentative date is Thursday, March the 12th, from 6 to 8 p.m. That's being done through AECOM. They're the engineering firm that we're working with on our safety action plan, and they will actually be the ones to conduct the in-person public engagement process. So just found this out today. As we get closer to the time, of course, there'll be a lot of, we'll advertise and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What time will it be at the Civic Center on March 1st?
March the 21st from 6 to 8 p.m.
That's the in-person?
Yes. And there'll probably be, online design surveys, that kind of thing, that'll be going out probably even before
We want to
that.
refresh our memory as to what this is a requirement for and why we have to do this.
This is the prerequisite step to any future TDOT transportation-related grants that we may apply for. We've talked a lot about with the nature park, as we start talking about that more and more, you know, there's going to be connectivity to get there, so we may do some improvements out at Highway 47 and School Road, for example. Or part of this process identifies where we've analyzed, they've analyzed crash data for the town for the last, 10 years, and you find where things are
More apt to
yeah,
be
you've got problem areas, and so then they would recommend some remediation and that kind of thing for those areas. So it's just, it's a prerequisite, but I think we're really getting some good data out of it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so we'll see you Tuesday night.